Today is April 9th, 2016. Joining us on the porch are Marc Warner and Heather Plyler.
The best place for family. What are you waiting for? Where friendships run deeper. Come join us on the porch. So glad you're on the porch.
Hey kids, you've made it another week to another exciting episode of On the Porch Radio Hour. And I'm here, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm Matthew. I've decided I need to consistently introduce myself as your host because I've recognized, based on our YouTube numbers, that we're picking up new guests. Not guests. I mean, so we're picking up new guests every week, but we're also picking up new listeners every week. And so I think it's fair for the listeners to know who this incredible voice is. And it's me, Matthew. And I'm here for the next hour or so to bring you soothing, lovable, and wonderful guests and their voices. And let me tell you how those guests got here. It all started actually quite a few years ago with a really interesting, with all sorts. So it was a really interesting experience that I had with a 6-foot SpongeBob SquarePants cutout. And so we fast forward these 10 years, and I was recently telling a story at the Lock on the evening at the Tavern on the Lock in Fulton. It was the evening of the Syracuse men's basketball Final Four game against North Carolina, and the bar was full of people, and we were celebrating a birthday in another part of the building. So we were in like the dining area. We were the only table there. There was 15 of us, and there was a lot of yelling and screaming that was happening in the bar. And so I'm telling this story about, how, because somebody was asking about who was going to be on the show this week, and I was explaining that Heather Plyler from Soul Hooping was going to be here, and Marc Warner, who's a really good personal friend of mine and a really incredible musician, was going to be back on the show for his second time. And so I started telling this story about how Marc and I had acquired a 6-foot SpongeBob, like a cardboard cutout of SpongeBob from an undesignated location in an undesignated area in New York State. And so we were there, and whatever, we ended up with this thing. And so there was another thing happening at the Lock that I thought we might be able to coordinate a similar experience so that everybody could relive the SpongeBob acquisition with me. And that didn't go so well. There were some folks that, well, let's face it, they weren't like Marc Warner. They weren't really into it. They just weren't into it. So I'm explaining this story, and I'm talking about Marc's Uncle Shecky, who's an incredible oboe player. And we were kind of talking about oboes and how neat it would be to have an oboe player at the Lock. And then, we're kind of going on and on and on. And so today is a very special day in my life, and we'll talk about that more later. But it's really nice to have Marc here and to be able to have had that experience over the weekend. And so then I started, they weren't into the whole like acquiring things at places that are public and whatever. And so I would just have to just dream about the day that I can have another experience like that. And so then I said, okay, well, Heather's going to be there too. And we started talking about hula hooping and watching people hula hoop and how beautiful it is and the things that are happening, at which time there were several people at the end of the table that had a couple of Long Island iced teas. And I guess they make them very good at the Lock. And so we had cloth napkins, and being 15 of us, you can take a good number of cloth napkins from the table at that point and tie them together. And so we had this knotted cloth hula hoop, and we were, and so people are trying to hula hoop cloth napkins, which is very difficult because in my experience, a hula hoop has to be a little more rigid. But then we were talking about personalities, and do we want rigid personalities or do we want more flexible? And so we were kind of a lot of, conversation that happens at a bar. You know, it's very deep and meaningful. And so there was a lot of symbolism that was happening in this flexible hula hoop, even though nobody could really do anything more than just wear it as a belt and just shake their hips around, which was also very fun. It was very fun. So anyway, as we were talking about this, I decided that maybe I should just start preparing for the show. And in that moment, I just started daydreaming, and a lot of really fun things happened. And so I was going to be at the Syracuse Chiefs game today, and that didn't really work out because we have snow in upstate New York, and they don't play baseball in the snow, so the game got canceled, and I ended up having to tailgate in my kitchen with boiled hot dogs and a couple of cans of beer, listening to a podcast with my family, which was really cool. You know, I said, we still have to listen to something. So we listened to a really cool podcast on the radio, and that was neat because that stimulated, you know, a really excellent conversation. And so a lot of really fun and interesting things happened. All of that to say that what you are in for is a stimulating, deep, philosophical, fun, and loving, and wonderful show, as always, with On the Porch Radio Hour. And our two guests are gonna bring their A game as we always do. So we'll be talking to Heather Plyler from Soul Hooping later. We're gonna be talking to Marc Warner. But for now, let's introduce Marc Warner and say, hey, Marc, you're on the porch.
Funny the things you wonder about it. Now you got me wondering what the statute of limitations is on stealing a large cutout SpongeBob SquarePants. and if we can date that story a little better, I think we were talking about you're kind of in the process of looking to buy the first car for that same young man at this point, are you not?
That's right.
So it was a while ago. It's great to be here. I'm Marc Warner. Matt and Gene and I met years ago through employment, and they were kind enough to ask me back again. So thank you, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready? Ready for my first number?
Yeah, buddy.
I'm going to do an old Jackson Browne song first. Running down along the towns around the shore, I was 16 and on my own. Well, I couldn't tell you what the hell those breaks were for. Was just trying to hear my song. Jimmy found his own sweet sound and won that free guitar. We'd all get in the van and play. Life became the paradox, the bear, the rouge et noir. A stretch of road leading to L.A. Pages turning. Pages we were years from learning. Deep into the night our hearts were flung. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. Lights were shining from those hills, stars above and the lights below. among those that test their fortunes and their skills. I lost track a long time ago. Pages turning, pages we were years from learning. Deep into the night our hearts were flung. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. Childhood calls for me at night. Pages of my friends, your face bathing me in light. Hope that never ends. Pages turning, pages torn and pages burning. Deep into the night our hearts were flung. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. Thank you.
Relatively new on the scene with soul hooping is Heather Plyler, and she's been doing it for about a year and a half, roughly, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that we were able to tap into soul hooping and to you early on, because when you get as big as you're going to get, it's going to be cool to be able to say, Heather was on the porch, fairly new in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're catching the talent, and we're catching it quick. So if you've only been on the scene for that long and you're making that big of an impact, then you're obviously invested in what you're doing.
Absolutely. More than invested, passionate.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why? What's the point in hula hooping, and what's your gig?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So what's the point about hooping and why so passionate about it? So very long story short, 2 years ago, I was at a live women's empowerment program, and there was a venue off to the side called Hooping Harmony, and went over and got in one of their very large hoops. And I'd been around hooping before. I've been in a hoop before, and nothing's really grabbed me or caught me. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a hoop, whatever. I got in their hoop, and because it was so large, it was easy to hoop in. So right away, I was like, oh, wow, I can hoop. This is awesome, because a lot of people can't hoop. Anyways, I got in the hoop, and my body found home. I later that year trained with Hooping Harmony to become a certified Radiant You hoop meditation instructor. It's a mouthful, I know. I've got it down though. And not 2 weeks later, my business was launched in October of 2014.
Wow.
And from there, it has just bloomed from, teaching classes, adult classes, and making adult hoops to instructing and teaching adult and children classes, making children's hoops and adult hoops, being at health and wellness fairs, because really that's what soul hooping is about, is a holistic alternative healing modality.
Right.
Being able to actually teach workshops and facilitate workshops at women's retreats. And now I'm developing my own programs and my own retreats off of the healing of the hoop.
Yeah. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
It is.
It's so cool to hear those kinds of stories where you're like, yeah, I was at this thing and it was neat and I figured I'd try this out, and then bam, I'm in. So that's really cool. I'm wondering what your knowledge is of similar things that are happening in Oswego County in central New York, because I have to be honest, you're the first that I've had interaction with that's doing this kind of things around hula hooping. So I feel like, maybe I'm in a biased position, but I've been to music festivals. I've been to places where hooping is happening. But what's the popularity? Are people doing this commonly in Central New York? Or?
So hooping has been around since the 50s. It's such a common thing. You say hula hoop to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I hooped as a child. I did this as a child. So what it is though, is it's a different modality. So instead of getting in a small lightweight hoop and just hooping and hoop dancing, or a popular hoop dance modality is hoop nautica. It is almost the opposite of that. It's getting in a very large hoop to center, to ground, to heal, to embody and connect back to body, mind, spirit. There were only 6 of us trained in this modality. Myself here, then I have another very good friend of mine who's in the Saratoga, Albany area, and then Massachusetts. And then the owners of Hooping Harmony are now in Florida. So there are not very many of us who are trained in this modality of using the hoop as a transformational tool. Now, don't get me wrong. I love getting in a smaller hoop and I love being able to hoop dance and break out my moves. However, meditation and being grounded and back in your body offers the healing that a lot of women are looking for.
Sure. Yeah. I had no idea. I wasn't expecting you to say that there was such few people doing what you're doing.
Yes.
So that's really cool that you are, that not only are you able to offer something like that in this area, and to have such a niche, but to be able to back it with such passion and investment and excitement is really cool. Every time I've seen you at a festival or at a, some kind of a fair like the one in Mexico, the Mexico Fall Festival.
Yes.
That was really cool, and it was neat to watch you. And I get sucked in every time. Like I want to watch from afar, and then the next thing I know, I'm hula hooping.
It's so true. It's catchy. If you have a hula hoop out, people are going to come to you. They automatically just are brought back to their childhood. And let's not forget the fun in it. When you're having fun, you forget everything else that you're doing, and that's such an important part of life is having fun.
Yeah. Geez. Thanks. That's a good reminder. I mean, it really is. It's neat. And, to not even be a participant is like to witness it is fun,
Absolutely.
And to see people that are older than what I would expect to be of hooping age, all the way down to kids that are really young and figuring out for their first time, and there you are in the middle and you're hooping for hours.
It's amazing because you can have as little as a child of 3 or 4 hoop, and you can have somebody as old as in their 70s hooping. And what's amazing about it for me is a lot of them have never been able to hoop and they think they're broken, and it's not them, it's the hoop. And so when you put them in a proper hoop and their face glows and they're smiling and they're like, I can hoop, my mission has been completed.
That's right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, totally. So I want you to, usually I do this at the end of an interview, but I'm going to, switch it up. I'm feeling crazy today. So give us kind of like the skinny, like give us the details of like where people can contact you, where they can find you, how they can enter classes, what you're offering.
Absolutely. There's actually a lot going on these next couple months. To stay fully updated, you can find everything on my website at www.soulhooping.com. You can go to Facebook and find the Facebook group page of Soul Hooping.
Okay.
You can drop me an email at soulhooping@gmail.com.
Okay.
So think Soul Hooping, everything's Soul Hooping. What do I have going on the next couple months? I have children's classes that are going to be taking place over April break, which is Tuesday the 26th. I have adult evening classes starting in May, and we're going to kick it off with an hour-and-a-half workshop to get everybody up to date, give them information, get them moving in the hoop before we actually start those classes. Okay. I have a retreat, a women's retreat called Celebrate Women that is happening May 7th. My good friend Trista Richardson is going to co-facilitate with me. She's a yoga instructor. So we are going to be doing this at Boonville Fitness on May 7th from 10 to 2, and it's a whole women's retreat. It's going to be beautiful, beautiful. And then besides that, I'm going to be at various health and wellness fairs and other venues going on throughout April and May. And the awesome thing is when you come to these venues, you have a chance to get in a hoop as opposed to just saying, oh, I want to get there and I'm not able to. So coming to the Healthy Baby Expo that's taking place in Oswego in a couple weeks, that would be an opportunity. Going to the holistic welfare or the holistic health fair that's going to be at the Elks Club on the Sunday, the 17th from 10 to 1. That's another opportunity. I'll be in the Watertown area for their Healthy Baby Expo. I believe it is May 21st. It's a Saturday from 10 to 3, so I'll be there. So there's lots of different places that you can catch me. And also an awesome opportunity is Mother Earth Baby in Oswego. They carry my hoops, so you can pop in during their store hours and get in and take a little swirl in a hoop. And if worst case scenario, you're not able to make any of that, you can drop me an email and you can personally come to my house and get in a hoop there also. So lots of different opportunities.
I like it. That's very cool. And good for you for opening so many different places and spaces and opportunities for people. So you're talking about a connection that you have that's a really great connection with Mother Earth Baby. And I'm having, she's selling your hoops there.
She is.
And I'm having a vision of pregnant women hula hooping, so I want to know, A, if that happens, and B, am I off in thinking that hula hooping can be as low impact as like the water aerobic kinds of things that people with like arthritis or have a hard time moving, that kind of stuff? Like, how does hooping fit into that?
Awesome question. I do get that a lot. Hooping is low impact. Hooping is also healing. Any negative energy you have in your body as you're hooping is released and positive energy is brought back in. I have had women who've had arthritis, who have had fibromyalgia, who have had MS, who have had depression, anxiety, and consistently being in the hoop have been able to relieve a lot of their symptoms and be able to actually heal their bodies. As far as pregnant women hooping, if you have been a hooper and you have been hooping previous to pregnancy, then you are okay to hoop until you get to that uncomfortable stage. However, if you've never been, I don't recommend it because the muscles that are used while you're hooping are actually stretching out throughout the pregnancy. And so it's easier to pull muscles. It's easier to strain something. It's easier to tweak your back just because of the muscles that are being used. However, I have known pregnant women who have hooped, but once again, they've been hooping their whole lives. So their bodies are used to that motion.
Right. And to be able to have a resource like you to be able to connect and say, what's okay? Like, how far can I push myself? What's not okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to get into a hoop because I'm storing a lot of my negative energy in the hooping region. You know what I'm saying?
That happens. It sure does. Hooping is for anybody, men, women, children. It doesn't matter. My rate for hooping, and I've been to a lot of different places and a lot of different people have gotten in hoops. I have probably had 2 men who have gotten in a hoop and just haven't been able to get it. Everybody else with practice has been able to have a successful hooping experience, increase their time in the hoop to where they're now able to get, say, 5 minutes out of it instead of 3 rotations before it falls, which is huge success. Huge success.
That's cool. That's awesome. So since we're nearing the end of our interview,
yes,
I can now interject this information, and you're not going to be able to be long enough to, you're not going to be around long enough to kind of like dispute it. And so at
I'm wondering what this is going to be now.
As a skilled interviewer, I know how to interject things and then get you off my show.
I see this.
Yeah. At the Mexico Festival, I've been very open about telling people about how, and I will quote you as saying, you are one of the best male hula hoopers I've ever seen. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. And for anybody that knows me, that's seen me, that follows the show, pick up a hula hoop because this is your competition right here.
Matthew, I do have to say, I remember you hooping.
I thought so.
And you're probably not far off from that.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. I've got hips and I know how to use them. You know what I'm saying? In a hula hoop. I also know how to sit on them, which is that's important. It's important. So Heather, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to say thank you so much for being on the show. Please make sure that you keep doing the work that you're doing. And I want to make sure that our audience continues to seek you out in all of those places. And what's really cool is that now we have it recorded. And so people can just rewind and make sure they're getting all of that information. And okay, so real quick, you gave us an email. Mm-hmm. You gave us a website.
Yes.
Is there a phone number?
Absolutely. 315-591-0518.
Perfect. You heard it here. Heather, thank you so much for being on the show. And she has hula hoops here. So there may end up being photos of me hula hooping in the kitchen. I don't know. We'll get there.
Excellent.
And a lot of things will end up on the floor, but if I'm one of them, that's even more fun. But thanks so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
It's been great. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's sponsor of On the Porch Radio Hour is, you know what? I'm going to back up for a second. I'm not going to do the whole like voice sponsor crazy like circus sideshow caller thing for the sponsor, because usually that I'm doing that and I'm using the voice and it's a lot of fun and it's really cool, and I'm throwing out a sponsor and people are like, wow, I wish I could be part of a show that was sponsored by, say, porcelain clown dolls or shredded tires, wood chips, those kinds of things. But tonight, I have to tell you that we are sponsored by what I think is a very interesting sponsor, because On the Porch Radio Hour is a very individually selected show by this sponsor. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, it's not really accessible by the rest of the public. But I have to talk about it. And they don't know that I was going to do this, and so it might be a shock to them, and that's why we have the power of editing in case we need to do something about that. But we have two gentlemen in our lives that have created what I'm calling the new mad firewood delivery service, and it's two very good friends of ours, Al Naveau and Kevin Madsen, who find themselves in a surplus of firewood from time to time. And because they're such great supports of everything we are doing here at the Wooden Apple Farmstead, every once in a while, our dog will just start going crazy and there will be a black pickup truck in our driveway. And sometimes she doesn't start barking until after Kevin has unloaded the majority of the wood from his pickup truck into our driveway. And so Al and Kevin have collaborated and have been incredible supports and incredible, I'm going to call them sponsors of the Wooden Apple Farmstead and of the On the Porch Radio Hour. They consistently show up to shows here at the farm. They come to listen. Neither one of them have ever been interviewed or have ever been part of the show. They don't care about pitching anything. And Kevin's already like trying to cut me off because I'm not even sure he wants his name mentioned. However, they're very good friends of ours, and I think that it's very fair, even though folks like H2O are like, they keep the show running, but Kevin and Al really keep the show running, and they keep the farm running, and they keep us warm and alive, and it's very cool. And so I wanted to make sure that I was giving a shout out because today Kevin showed up. And I was like, oh man, Kevin, thanks so much, man. You keep showing up, and every once in a while, it's just like you're here, and you've got a load of wood, and it's really cool, and I'm helping him unload it. And his response was, hey man, don't thank me. This was Al's idea. So it came from Al's house, and then we unload the pickup truck. I shake his hand. We're like, yeah, man, that was awesome. We part ways. And then maybe 20 minutes later, Kevin drives back into the driveway and he's like, all right, this one's from my place. And so, we get a second load of wood, and it's very cool. We haven't had to use our furnace at all this winter because of the wood that we've been able to gather and the wood that Kevin and Al have been able to help supplement as we move into our spring. No, wait, it's not spring. Oh, wait, no, it is. Oh, wait, it's not. And so we're warm today, cold tomorrow kind of stuff. And they're and they're keeping us warm. So I wanted to give that out, and I want to thank them so much for their sponsorship, whether they're asking for that recognition or not, because we don't ask for the wood, and yet they bring it anyway. So if they don't ask for the recognition, I don't know why we can't bring that anyway as well. So thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Al. I hope Al is listening on Concert Window. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but sometimes he logs in when he's at work. Hopefully nobody else at work, say his supervisors, are listening. But if they are, that means that that they're also tuned in at work too. So anyway, thank you both. Thank you for all the work that you do, and thanks for being such good friends of On the Porch Radio and the Wooden Apple Farmstead. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's show is sponsored by New Mad Wood Delivery Service. And thank you. You're listening to On the Porch Radio Hour. We'll be back in a moment.
This is what's happening in Central New York. Soul Hooping is offering a class today at 12:30 p.m. at the Community Wesleyan Church in Baldwinsville, as well as classes for both adults and children throughout the community. Visit soulhooping.com for more information. The Holistic Wellness Fair is being held today at the First Universalist Church in Central Square from 10 to 4. There will be mini workshops throughout the day, as well as healers, psychics, vendors, and information booths. Admission is a free will donation at the door. The Healthy Baby Expo, including the 6th annual Great Cloth Diaper Change, will be held on April 23rd at Elam Grace Church in Oswego. There will be activities, vendors, product demos, and more. Visit healthybabyexpo.com for more information. The Oswego Music Hall welcomes back Chuck Brodsky with Gina Holsoppel opening on April 16th. The Music Hall also offers an open mic night on April 15th with guest host Greg Rossblock. Visit oswegomusichall.org for more information. The Grascals take the stage at Collette Theater and Conference Center on April 22nd at 7:30 p.m. The theater is also hosting upcoming screenings of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Norm of the North, The Revenant, and The Hateful Eight. To find out about these and other events at the theater or to purchase tickets, visit calatheater.com or call 315-298-0007. Seussical Jr. closes this weekend at the CNY Arts Center, and A Midsummer Night's Dream opens on May 13th. The Arts Center will be offering another session of ballroom dancing classes beginning in April, and also offers a monthly writers' cafe, where writers of all ages can come and share their work in a casual setting. The next session is April 24th. For more information about these, as well as other projects and events at the CNY Arts Center, visit cnyartscenter.com. The Wooden Apple Farmstead is home of the Red Room Sessions, a time for songwriters and musicians and anyone else who wants to build their musical skill and knowledge to get together. We share songs we are working on, bounce musical ideas off each other, and we usually have time to just play a little music. This is a supportive environment where all levels of songwriting and musical experience are welcome. The next session is April 24th at 6 p.m. For more information about Red Room Sessions or other events and projects, visit Wooden Apple Farmstead on Facebook or call 315-591-0711.
Not only a personal friend for many years, but as whether I edited this part out or not, I'm not sure. But I would like to reinforce that Marc Warner really is one of Central New York's slowest emerging artists. But consistent, whether he's on the radio or not. Marc Warner is consistent not only in his music performance, not only in his incredible music sound and the really awesome mellow feel that you get, but he's consistent in personality and friendship as well. And whether we were bringing Marc on as a musician or just somebody that's fun to talk to, it's always nice to be in Marc Warner's presence. So thanks so much for taking time to be on the show again.
Thank you.
You bet. So, Marc, the last time you were on the show, you were here and we talked to you about being a musician and kind of your life as a musician and the things you did and where you started. And And I was thinking about touching on some of that stuff again, but I'm really intrigued and really excited about something that's at least new to me that you're doing, that I think is probably something you started within the last year or two, maybe.
This year.
Okay, this year.
Yeah.
Nice. So you're hosting a like a music night is it in Hannibal?
It's in Hannibal, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
It's funny how much it aligns with our previous interview, our discussion. You know, I've never been a professional musician. I've been a social worker most of my life, and have always played music and played around. And I talked about how great it was to come from Oswego and how rich the talent is in the area, and how nurturing and nice the whole musical community has always been. And as though speaking to the Legion in Hannibal itself, I grew in the habit of going in there on Sunday nights with my guitar unplugged and playing at the bar for the vets and the people that come in. It is actually the closest bar to my house that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But my friend Brenda Fletcher over the last winter asked me if I would commit to coming in on Monday nights and performing for 2 hours that she could advertise and build up. And Brenda is an amazing caterer and chef, and always when she works had put out food anyway. So I said, you know, for the month of January, you know, I'll bill us from 6 to 8. I'll come down, I'll set up my gear so people can hear me better, and put out food, and we'll talk it up on Facebook, and I will ask one of my friends who is talented to come in and exploit their talent with my personal designs. And I characteristically named the event the K. Marc Warner and Friends Who Will Play for Their Drinks series. And sure enough, it kind of grew wings. And again, the joke is that my friends come in and play for their drinks. And we've now done, I think, 16 shows there. My friend Tim Stone comes in with me, and Tim and I open the show, and I do a short, like 20 minutes, half hour by myself. Tim, who's never played outside of a band and outside of playing bass, has brought an acoustic and performed there each week, his own sets, which are magnificent. And we've had Larry Kyle, and I know you guys know Brian Dickinson's, Rich Hart's come in. My friend Kevin Beringer stopped in the other night. Mark Wall, who builds my guitar and plays wonderfully, has been a guest a couple times. We've only doubled like 2-3 times, so we've had a tremendous number of guests. And the joke is that they play for their drinks, but honestly what has grown out of the room is that they have a listening audience. They have people that actually stop what they're doing and look at us and listen to us. And I played at crowded rooms all the time where nobody's paying attention to me, and I'm not complaining. I love those gigs, and you take those gigs and you do them, but there's a phenomena where they've just kind of learned to trust me and listen to what I bring in.
Yeah.
So it has grown substantially. They've actually modified the room and brought in more chairs, and they're talking about having me do some outdoor stage things through the summer. And,
Oh man.
But it is a direct outgrowth of the dynamics that we discussed here.
Yeah.
Time I came, and I couldn't be more proud of it.
That's so
And
cool.
Surprised by it, honestly.
Yeah. That's so cool. When Gina had first explained it to me, I thought, oh, it's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
We have to have you and Gina come in. And I actually talked to Renee when we first talked about returning here. We could collaborate sometime, and you could do a show from there. And
Oh, yeah.
Put in, edit tape the night and edit what you want. And something would be great to bring the two worlds together.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
That would be so fun.
Yeah,
So
it really
fun.
would.
That's so cool.
Easily done, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
We both build up our own things and slap them together.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. What's funny is that I'm hearing you talk, and I'm loving everything that you're saying, and I'm thinking about how these kinds of things come together for certain people, and I maybe very naively or uneducatedly, but I've started separating groups of people that can put things together like that into two groups. And so there's one group that does their research, and they do all of the marketing stuff, and they're like really incredible business people. And if we're talking about it in the music business, whether they're musicians or not, they're just like, they know business and they know how to get people to come. And then there's the group of people that are just really charismatic and really like draw those kind of people in, and that's the group that I see you fitting into, and it just makes total sense that, of course, like I'm just going to show up and play. And now all of a sudden you've got a listening room and you've got people showing up and a really talented group. And like,
And of course, all the same could be said of you, and should be. But there's also a hugely narcissistic side to me where I get to play with all these people.
right.
When I'm done and then they're done, we all get together and we do collaborative stuff.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of they're all my friends, so I've done enough with them all. So we jump up and we put stuff together that I'm super proud of.
Yeah.
You know, and super happy to be able to do.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
That's a big part of it too.
It really is. It's just a ton of fun. So one of my big questions then is we're talking about this, we're promoting this. How do people find out about it? Can the public access a place like that? Like, how does it?
Not available to the public.
Right.
No, it totally is, but actually we're going to stop it after April. So there's 3 more weeks of it. It's every Monday. We're going to take a break through the summer and then pick it up again in the fall.
Perfect.
But it's a private club, but it's absolutely open to the public, and the food is wonderful, and it's the vets and my community and just nicest people you could meet, and nurturing and supportive and fun. So I'm on Facebook as Marc Warner, and I post about who's coming and who's been and how it's been, and I welcome anybody to friend me, and I'll be writing about it when it comes back around again for sure.
Awesome. And what nights is it?
Monday night.
Monday nights. So the next 3 Mondays.
Yep.
Show up at the Legion in Hannibal.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. It's down the road from where the fire department holds their field days. It's on the same road. There's actually 2 big buildings and stages and fields, which I have a great story one day about Brian Mosier being at the wrong one while I was up the road going, no, you're not at the stage, Brian, I'm at the stage. But, yeah, please try and join us. It's on Rochester Street. They have a Facebook site as well, and I link to them whenever I write about it, so you can find it all through me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're connecting with that, because not only is Mark a cool guy, but he's bringing in some really cool acts, and it's neat that there's a local place that's willing to let that stuff happen.
It is neat.
That's so neat, man.
And again, the big joke through the winter was, on a Monday night, usually in the winter at the Legion in Hannibal, there'd only be 3 people there, and I'd be one of them. So I mean, it's something that we really created. We didn't capture a crowd or take over anything else. We built this up on a night where there's nothing going on, and that again makes me super proud of it and happy about it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Play some more music for us.
All right, I'm going to do a John Prine song. John Prine's one of my favorite singer-songwriters and one of 12 entities to which I already own concert tickets for the next 4 months.
Attaboy.
I have them listed over my desk at work, like at least once a week. I'm going to see Keller Williams Friday, and I'm excited about that too. But this is a John Prine song.
Sweet.
Well, I jumped so high, knocked the table over, thought I saw a ghost come out of the clover, lived in this house 40-odd years or so. She was buried in the back with the English and the natives, slaughtered like sheep, women and babies, lots of blood and tears, 200 years ago. It's like they're caught up in the trees in the webs of spiders, making ghostly tracks, ghostly riders, all they really want, find their way back home. But there's nothing back there, or tomorrow, no place they put their sorrow, heavy as that, cold as a rolling stone. And I call this place my homeland, and I love this land I own. It belongs to another people, they possess it in their bones. You can hear them down below like 100 televisions humming all night. Beneath the subdivisions, all they really want, find their way back home. They've been trouble in this plane, looking for attention, making ghostly tracks, mostly invention, all they really want, find their way back home. So build up a fire, say a little prayer and cook 'em up a plate, say a little chair and go from a plate, maybe we can all find peace. We can't bury anything, man or nations, old memories, old vibrations, the pain doesn't stop just because the killing cease. And I call this place my homeland, and I love this land I own. It belongs to another people, they possess it in their bones. Well, I jumped so high, straight up off the bed sheet, nightmare sky, bloody with the red heat, started to cry, couldn't find my way back home. Well, I landed in the ditch, landed in the gutter, landed in the arms of my long lost mother, crying like a child, Bayou Prairie moan. And I call this place my homeland, and I love this land I own. It belongs to another people, they possess it in their bones. And I call this place my homeland, and I love this land I own. It belongs to another people, they possess it in their bones. They possess it in their bones. They possess it in their bones. Thanks. Thanks, Matt. Let me sit down.
All right, so I'm going to bring Gina up and ask you to stay put then and see maybe you guys can do a quick collaboration or even a long one. However it works, man. Do your thing.
That was a great
That's great, Clouds so swift and the rain won't lift, gate won't close, railings froze. Get your mind off wintertime, you ain't going nowhere. Ooh-wee, ride me high, tomorrow's the day my brides are gonna come. Oh no, we're gonna fly down into the easy chair.
I don't care how many letters they sent. Morning came and morning went. Pick up your money and pack up your tent. You ain't going nowhere.
Ooh-wee, ride me high, tomorrow's the day my brides are gonna come. Oh no, we gonna try down into the easy chair. Buy me a flute and a gun that shoots, tailgates and substitutes. Strap yourself to the tree with roots, you ain't going nowhere. Ooh-wee, ride me high, tomorrow's the day my brides are gonna come. Oh, we gonna try down to the easy chair.
Genghis Khan, he could not keep all his kings supplied with sleep. We'll climb that hill no matter how steep, and we get up to it.
Ooh-wee, ride me high, tomorrow's the day my brides are gonna come. Oh, we gonna try down to the easy chair. Ooh-wee, ride me high, tomorrow's the day my brides are gonna come. Oh, we gonna fly down to the easy chair. Up to the easy chair, down to the easy chair. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Matt. And next up, I'd like to introduce my good friend and also ex-working partner of many years ago, the lovely and talented Gina Hosapple.
Thanks, Mark.
Just when you thought you were running aground, you hear a soft sigh, a shimmer of sound. You cut your losses, pull back, trimming your sails, shifting your tacks. You wrestle these waves, and we're looking for home. Not sure when it left us, we want the right way to go, and there's pressure to let up. We're looking for home. We're looking for home. We're looking for the right way to go. Clouds shift to danger as they're cutting their trails. A sign you know well from your time on the rails. The thunder and lightning do nothing but warn you. You got to keep clear through the heart of this storm. And we're looking for home. Not sure when it left us. We want the right way to go, and it's pressure to let up. We're looking for home. We're looking for home. We're looking for the right way to go. Most every day I come back to this screen for some semblance of friendship, some sliver of meaning. I join marches and movements. As I sit in my chair, I build gardens and farmyards that aren't even there. And we're looking for home. Not sure when it left us. We want the right way to go, and there's pressure to let up. We're looking for home. We're looking for home. We're looking for the right way to go. Still hold my breath as we lift into flight, though nothing compares to the view from this height. I am caught in the roar of this deafening sound, and the sighs of relief when we finally touch down. And we're looking for home. Not sure when it left us. We want the right way to go, and there's pressure to let up. We're looking for home. We're looking for home. We're looking for the right way. We're looking for home. Not sure when it left us. We want the right way to go, and there's pressure to let up. We're looking for home. We're looking for home. We're looking for the right way to go.
Thank you.
Healthy is the man who remembers the past, lives in the present, and prepares for the future. It's a quote that I've written several times, not a lot, but enough on the insides of cards that I've hand-drawn or have bought for friends of mine who have lost men in their lives. And as I made my way back to my hometown in Tonkahogan a year ago, and I was holding on to a card that somebody had handed me. And I was opening that card, and I was making my way into a church to attend the funeral service of my grandfather. And I was thinking about if I was giving a card to myself, knowing my relationship with my grandfather, who really was a grandfather in a lot of sense, spending time with him as a kid, letting him be, choosing him to be the role model that he was, the main man influence in my life, cutting very, very delicately into the envelope with my pocket knife. I thought, would I write those words to myself? Would I do that? Would I know that those were the right things to say? And then I started questioning writing all of those things for other people. But I knew that writing those things for the people that I did, it was right, which is why I didn't write it in every card. There's always something for somebody. And that was just the right quote for several people that were important to me, and they had lost somebody important to them. And I sat down in the pew, and although I had carefully slit the envelope open all the way, it still found its way into my inside pocket of my suit coat. I never took it out to read it. After the funeral service, I was really glad that I didn't take it out because it may have wrongly, I think, influenced the words that I said during the funeral service. I was asked to give the eulogy for a man that had been so important in my life. Although he'd had 5 other children, 4 of them still alive and present at the funeral, but those 4 children thought that it was best for me to get up and give the eulogy. And as I sat in that church pew and I looked out through those gorgeous stained glass windows, I was again reminded of another set of words that I've spoken several times in my time as a storyteller, and listening to what the priest was saying and looking through those stained glass windows and thinking about my vision of stained glass windows and my representation of my grandfather in those stories of being at other people's funerals with my grandfather and looking through those stained glass windows and envisioning them and connecting them with how gorgeous the wings of a dragonfly as they flit and glide open and the sun reflects perfectly off them with all of those same reds and greens and blues and yellows that you see in stained glass windows. And it really makes sense still that stained glass windows are so present on churches, because that's where people go to praise and to give thanks or to worship, or whatever language you choose, to some higher energy in their life, some higher entity, and somebody that, or something, or some whatever that is powerful in their life. And dragonflies, in many stories, they really are the transport of souls into another realm, into the next space that those souls should move on to from this physical plane into the next. And I always represent my grandfather in those stories because he was always the wise influence, but never a preaching wise influence, always a very subtle backdoor kind of influence. When having a good day or a bad day, he would always have those 3 words, no matter what they were. They were never the same, but it was very few words that always struck a chord and always made me want to drive and strive for more. It was motivating. It was inspiring. And I sat and I had 3 pieces of paper that I had written out the words that I was going to use at the eulogy. And each one of those papers had 1 word on them. 3 words. If you were to ask me today what those 3 words were, I wouldn't have any idea. But the rest of the eulogy was just doing what I'm doing now and giving praise, giving honor, giving worship, as we do inside those stained glass walls. And sometimes you hear people talk about how stained glass windows are appropriate on churches because they don't let the real light in. They kind of cloud what allows us to really see the world for its true self. But on a day like that, and in context of connecting stained glass windows with something as treasured by many as a dragonfly and its wings, it made a lot of sense, and I ran my fingers along the edges of those 3 folded up pieces of paper in the other pocket. Enough so that when I unfolded them at the podium that they tore. And I felt like that was very representative of my experience with my grandfather. Always wonderful and weathered, like your favorite t-shirt or that favorite flannel that you always go back to, no matter how many times you've pulled it out of the bottom of your laundry basket and put it on anyway, and you haven't washed it because it's just so comfortable. It doesn't matter how bad it smells or the stains that are on it, because it's there and it's comfortable. And if a shirt could be a person, it's that shirt that lets you ride on its lap when you're 4 years old and lets you steer all the way from the house to the dump every Saturday morning, and then from the dump to the coffee shop, singing Frank Sinatra songs to a really staticky AM station in a beat-up old pickup truck. Because that's life, man. That's how it works. That's what we do. Or at least that's what we should do. And although I'm still young and my kids are still young, I think about being a grandfather because that's what I know. And I don't want to be one of those guys that pressures my kids into having kids just so I can be a grandpa. So I'm doing my best now to be the grandfather to my kids that my grandfather was to me. That might be weird, but grandfathers get away with a lot more than parents do. And it's really cool because then I don't have to send them home at the end of the day like a lot of grandparents do. But all these thoughts in a 1 minute span just go, and they cycle and they whirl and they tornado. And you hope that when you open your mouth, whatever flies out of that tornado is really what you want to come out. And there I stood, with a priest sitting in a chair behind me, eyeing me, reminding me with that look that I only have a certain amount of time to cover the life of an incredible man. It's really unfair, but I understand the time limits that we have in time like that, and people don't go to church to listen to me talk about the entire life of my grandfather. So I walked up, I made a joke, held up those 3 pieces of paper with the really big words on them. Those 3 words, even though I couldn't remember them a few minutes ago, I'm watching it happen, and there they are. Just not enough. Those were the 3 words. Those were the 3 words that I used to describe my grandfather. To describe the words that I had to describe my grandfather. It's just not enough. But today, exactly 1 year later from the day that he died, the day that I was sitting with him, the only other person in the hospital room when he took his last breath, is such a beautiful experience to be with somebody. And even though it was the middle of the night and there weren't any stained glass windows, there were those beautiful bright colors coming from somewhere. And like on the wall of a hotel pool room where you are surrounded by a lot of windows and the sun comes through and you take laps in a pool that's just way too small, way too warm, and way too chlorinated to be swimming in. But the lights are reflected on the wall and they wave, and it's like being at a disco in the middle of a Hilton. And as you watch those lights dance on the wall, and if you're in the middle of a hospital room and you don't know where they come from, you don't care. Or maybe you do know where they come from and you don't have the words to describe it. But no matter what, they're there and they dance slowly. And they take you by the hand and they walk you around. And they let you see the person that's there, that you're there to honor, that you're there to love and be with. And even though there's a part of you that wants to take that last breath with them, you make the commitment to that person that this really is my first breath. This is the first breath in my new life in which I'm going to honor you, and I'm going to try to be the person that I want to be because you've inspired that, and you're not going to be around for me to show you how I've done that. But those lights, they dance, and they still have you by the hand, and they walk you around. And when that last pair of fuzzy slippers makes it shuffle down the hallway outside of you, there's nothing else for you to listen to except for those lights, and they sing to you. This is my home. This is my only home. This is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray in the dark night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Well, friends, you did it again. You made it to the end of another exciting episode of On the Porch Radio Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Wood, and I am so glad that we've been able to share our space tonight with Marc Warner and Heather Plyler and Kevin Madsen and Al Naveau. Even though I can't read from here, I think you're on Concert Window, and if you're not, you're here in spirit, and I'm glad because you're going to listen to the show anyway. And everybody else that's on Concert Window, thanks for being here. And I also want to thank everybody that listens on our website, www.ontheporch.weebly.com. And because I know you're already saying I can't wait until next week's episode, let me give you a sneak peek. You can join us next week with our guests Jim Farfaya and Joanne Sherwood, which is super exciting. We have some guests coming up in the future. Eric Mena, Jenny Gordon, Kyle Osman, and Shane and Nona Amering. Incredible friends of ours, all of them. And on June 9th, we're going to be recording live from the Hall Newman Center at SUNY Oswego. So you should think about that, folks, because that'll be really cool. We're going to be on site and having a ton of fun recording. And hopefully, we'll have some cool guests that follow us out there, too. And so whether we see you on Concert Window, in our archives section on the website, live at Wooden Apple Farmstead, or wherever we are. Until then, friends, peace to your journey.
On the Porch is a production of the Wooden Apple Farmstead with host and writer Matthew Wood. Our musical director is Gina Holcomb. Our stage manager is Ray Monet. Tonight's sound technician is Gina Holcomb. This week's show is recorded live from Wooden Apple Farmstead in Palermo, New York. This week's guests are musician Marc Warner and from Soul Hooping, Heather Plyler. Find information about past shows, being on the porch, and much more online at ontheporch.weebly.com.